In this video, I'm going to give you guys an overview of what's in our new Next Level Glow kits from Next Level Neo. So many of you guys have been asking for us to come out with a Underglow line for quite a while, and for the longest time we were focusing on other aspects of lighting with strips, halos, and controllers and things like that. But I think the time has finally come to go ahead, step into the space, and see what we can offer, see which ways that we could improve on what exists in the market, and put together a kit that we can be proud of here at Next Level Neo. So over the past several months, we have been buying kits from other companies to see how they put their kits together, what they include, what's missing, and what's not. I've had Underglow on my cars for many years. We were previously selling a brand. I'm not going to name any brands here. I don't want to directly compare, but if you are familiar with an Underglow brand or you've used one in the past, I will show you what we offer, and you can compare that side by side. But I went ahead and put some stuff together after comparing many of the brands on the market, seeing who did what aspects we liked, what aspects we thought we could improve on, and just going from there. So first up, if you order a full kit, we do have several options on the site. You can get a full kit for our better or best tier. Better tier is our lower, somewhat comparable to the average kits on the market right now as far as output. And then we have our best tier, which is meant to outperform even the best kits on the market right now. In addition to that, we have options for creating, piecing together different kits. Many people like to get 5-meter rolls, have them on hand, cut them up to the size that they need, and we do offer that as well. We also offer it by the pair. It's possible with our kits, they do include 6 strips, and in many cases people find that having 8 or possibly even 10 strips is more beneficial to their car. So we wanted to make that an option. You would just choose a 6-piece kit and then choose to add a extra pair of strips to make up for that extra that you need. We also sell just the controllers by themselves, if that were something that you're interested in. The controllers are designed specifically for our strips. The biggest limiting factor to it is that they are designed on an RGB color order LED type that is 12 volts. So do keep that in mind. I'd make no promises that it will fit other brands like WS2811s or things like that that other brands are using. I cannot say for sure that it will work with those, but the controller will most definitely work with the UCS lineup that we are using. We also have available extensions on the website in both 1-meter and 2-meter lengths, and we also have female and male pigtails. You can buy them by the pair. Would include a male and a female, and that way you can make your own connections. If you are to get a kit, the kits basically are going to look the same. The only difference is going to be the actual LEDs themselves. If you were to order a kit, it should come in a box just like this. So the first thing you're going to see in the box is our hardware kit. We did see where some companies were including a hardware kit, some weren't, but we wanted to try to put together a cost-effective hardware kit that will help install without you having to go to the hardware store and pick anything up. You can totally install this kit using everything that's included in the box and not have to buy anything else. Now, we do recommend considering using aluminum rails, and the main purpose of that being that they will take some abuse. If you are to curb the car or ground out or something, you're less likely to destroy your strips if you have aluminum rails. It also is a better way to secure these strips to the car because it will attach to that clean aluminum rail and generally hold very well to that versus the underside of the car where adhesion might be an issue. We are using a very high quality, very expensive 3M tape. It's a VHB tape from 3M to get the best adhesion that we can. But at the same point, you definitely want to take extra precautions to make sure that everything is good. You can have the best tape in the world, but if the bottom of your car is dirty, it's not going to stick very well. So keep in mind things like that. Wipe off the bottom of the car if you can. Alcohol and a rag is a good idea. The aluminum rails, you won't even have to worry about that. I personally like the aluminum rails, and I'll leave a link in the description of this video so that you can see what I'm talking about as far as those rails go. They're relatively inexpensive, to the point where for us to add them to the kits and then ship them out, it would have just raised the price unnecessarily so that is why they are not included in the kit, and they are really cheap to buy. So definitely consider that. But beyond that, if you don't want to, you don't have to. We have a very complete kit here. So you can see in our hardware kit, we do include 10 zip ties, as well as 10 zip tie mounts here. And the purpose of these would be, they are 2 sets of tape on the back side. You can secure this under the car in different various places where you may need a little bit of extra help to tuck a wire or something else out of the way. It's not so much meant for the strips as much as the wiring going to the strips and the controller. And that just keeps it out of the way. You would basically take the zip tie here, secure this in place, slide it through, and then secure this around any wiring that you're trying to keep out of the way of road and debris and things like that. Moving on from that, we do have our silicone mounting strips here. The way that would work is that you would have a strip, and at various points on the strip, you can use these silicone tie downs to hold that to the car. Now, once again, you're still going to want to use the tape on the back side of this, or an aluminum rail if you do have that. That's actually preferred. And then you can just use these self-tapping screws to screw into the frame of the car or into any paneling underneath of the car to secure it in place. And these are self-tapping screws, so they do have a little drill head on the top of them. So they work very well to go through sheet metal or things like that, and very easily go through plastic. So we tried not to cheap out on the screws there, the silicone brackets, or really any of this kit. We wanted to offer a lot with the install kit itself. Now, if you were to go with aluminum rails, this is how I would secure those in place. Just using this, screw directly through the aluminum rail once again into a sheet metal or some kind of a frame of the vehicle underneath, just to keep things nice. Now, with Underglow, it's always important to keep in mind the location that you secure everything. Ideally, with strips, if it's the LED strip versus the pavement with the car on top, you're going to lose. So you got to keep that in mind. If you're on a lowered car and you frequently bottom out, you're going to want to avoid the areas where it hits on the frame of the car, hits the pavement. We will cover this in much more detail in a future video when we do a full install on probably the truck first, but it'll be one of our cars. But it's definitely something to keep in mind if you're new to installs. It's not hard to do, but you do have to keep in mind certain things like that. So this gives you an idea of what is included in the install kit itself, and this does come standard in all of our complete kits. That also includes the kits with no controller. It will still include the install kit. And that does include 20 of the silicone brackets, 40 of the self-tapping screws, 10 of the zip tie holders, and 10 zip ties. So it should be enough to get any kit installed on a car. If you do need a little bit more, you can reach out, let us know, and we can add an extra install kit for a small fee if that is needed. But in general, this should be enough to get you going. Moving on, we will start from the front of your kit going to the back. So the first part in your kit will be the controller itself. And this is actually one of the things that we developed to help elevate our kits beyond what the typical kit is from other manufacturers that you might see. So you will get your controller in a bag just like this. And inside the bag, you will find a remote with an instruction booklet and a QR code that you can scan to download the application. We are also working on our own application. It is currently on the marketplace for download on Android, but there are some bugs in it, so just keep that in mind if you do check it out. But the name of the app is called the NLN Flow Controller, and once again, you can find that on the Google Play Store. The goal of this app is just to make it a little bit better than the typical apps that are out there, while still utilizing the same SP controllers that we are using in this. Next up is the controller itself, and you will find a rather long power and ground connection. Your black wire is your ground connection, and your red wire is your power connection. And ideally, you're going to want to go directly to the battery. If you do have a car, like maybe a Charger, where the battery is in the trunk, you are going to want to put this to the, generally around the fuse box on cars like that, there is a power connection point. You're going to want to choose that, and then a solid ground. But if your battery is under the hood, I highly recommend going directly to the battery, since that is the strongest connection that you will be able to make under the hood. We do also have a built-in fuse holder in the power line, just in case anything does go south. You won't burn down your car, you won't have any issues like that. It does have a 20 amp fuse, and it can be upgraded if need be. Moving over to the controller, we have our controller driver combo. Has a lot of stuff in here, a lot of stuff going on. We actually have a relay inside, an SP105E, and a driver for your DRL and turn signal animations. The relay is a 40 amp relay, and the purpose of that relay is to prevent the underglow from killing your battery. So on a typical kit, you might have to install a relay or some other disconnect device separately on the car. That's generally not included in the kits. There are some brands that do include it in the kits, some do not. Definitely something to consider if you are shopping around, because this is a pretty big issue with addressable LEDs. Addressable LEDs will draw power at all times from the battery, even when they're not running. And this can be a really big issue with something as large as Underglow, because the amount of power it draws is dependent on the number of LEDs in the system and the kind of LEDs that are being used in the system. So some draw much more than others. And that is something to consider, because when you go out to your car in the morning, it may be dead if you don't have some kind of a relay system in place. Rather than having you install a relay and put a button on the dash inside of the car or some other method, we wanted to make it, one, as automated as possible, and two, as easy to turn on and off as possible. And that is where the remote comes in. So this remote has an on and off button. When you push it on, the relay turns on. When you push it off, the relay turns off. It will automatically resume whatever the previous mode was that you were using. So if you go in the app and you choose rainbow or solid red, solid blue, some other color, it will turn on and off with that remote. And that is how you're going to be able to tell if it is running or not. If your underglow's on, that means you're connected. If the underglow's off, that means that you're not. So you can go ahead and just use that remote that way to turn it on and off, save your battery, and have it running when you do desire it to actually run. Coming out of there, we also do have our signal indicators. So we do have a DRL and 2 turn signals. So you'll have 1 turn signal for the driver's side and 1 turn signal for the passenger side, as well as 1 DRL wire that can go to either side. So generally, it will depend on where your battery is located. On many foreign import cars, it's usually on the driver's side. Some cars, it might be on the passenger side, and on a few cars, it will be in the trunk of the vehicle. But in general, one turn signal is longer than the turn DRL combo. So the turn DRL combo should be on the same side as your power and ground, and then that other turn signal should be ran across the car. It is important that you keep all wiring away from hot and moving parts under the hood. So you're going to want to avoid the radiator, probably try to run in front of that if you can. And just make sure that you don't have anything that's going to burn through the wires. They are not safe to extreme temperatures and moving parts, so you're just going to want to keep that in mind. The turn signals and the DRLs are animated. What that means is that your turn signals are actually a sequential turn signal. So the turn signal for each side will start at the front of the strips and flow out the side. So they are side dependent. That means that if you're doing a right turn, and you are tapped into your right turn signal, it will flow on the right side of the car for the turn. If you tapped into your left turn signal, it will flow on the left side of the car. The way that you can tell which wire is which is just making note of how the wires are coming out of the box. So this combo here should go with these power connection wires for the strips, and this one should go with that one. And as long as you keep those together, you shouldn't have any problems with the turn signals being flipped on the car. Another thing the turn signal and DRLs do is activate the relay. So in the event that you are just getting in the car to go to the store, or drive down the road, go to work, something like that. If you choose to use the DRL and turn signal functions that are available on this controller, it will automatically turn that relay on when you go for a drive. You do not need to use the remote. When you park the car, you get out, you walk away, the relay will turn off. And that way you can have everything running automatically for normal use. Now, as far as running Underglow in your car, you do want to consider your local laws and regulations regarding that. It's not always a great idea to run Underglow because it can be illegal in some places, so just keep that in mind. In general, if you're not sure, it's probably a good idea just not to run the Underglow while driving down the road. Save it for car meets, save it for car shows, and save it for when you're showing off. And otherwise, just don't use that stuff. One thing to also keep in mind, we did design the system where you do not have to use the DRL, you can use the turn signals. But if you do just use the turn signals and not the DRL, then when you do your left turn signal, the right side of the car will play whatever animation you were using last. So let's say that you decide that you want to run red on your car when you're driving down the road. You can actually do that by not connecting the DRL wire and manually turning on your Underglow every time that you use it. You can still tap in your turn signals and the turn signals will work as well. Let's say you just want to do turn signals and you don't want to do the DRL red or any color. You can do that as well by going into the application and pushing the power button in the top right corner. You can turn off the show mode functions and the turn signals will work as normal, meaning the turn signal is on the left side of the car flashing, the right side will be off, not doing anything. So we tried to give you guys some flexibility for that, depending on what your desire is. I know for myself, I put Underglow on my cars, and I do actually use the DRL and turn signal functions. I've driven in many states and I have had no problems with this. I am using white for the running lights and amber for the turn signals, which is the way this kit is designed. I have not had an issue with that, but I am by no means saying that you will not have an issue. So please keep in mind the laws in your area to make sure that you don't have any problems. Moving on from there, you do have your two outputs going to the LED strips. Now these are 2-meter extensions going from the box, so that gives you a pretty good range to be able to run from the box to the strips. Generally, you're going to want to mount those strips down in the center of your front bumper and then flow outward. So if you measure your bumper and it's about 72 inches, you're probably going to want to run two 36-inch strips in the front, split down the middle. And the reason for this is the flow factor, is the idea that on the older kits where it was just a solid color, you would have 4 strips. You would have a front strip, you'd have a rear strip, and you'd have 2 side strips. But with the addressable, you really want to split it down the middle and have it flow outward for a more uniform look. So that is why our kits are 6-piece standard, and you can go ahead and add in an extra 2 or 4 strips if you need to separately for larger applications, depending on what you're trying to do. We do have a measurement tool on the website to help you a little bit more in measuring your car and determining what lengths that you would need. Do keep in mind you probably want to choose a strip that is slightly less than the full length of your car. So if you're measuring the side skirts and it's exactly 80 inches, you might want to consider going with the 72. We will be introducing other sizes at some point as things progress and sales pick up a little bit. It was a rather large initial investment to get everything that we have in, especially doing 2 tiers. But we just felt that 2 tiers was really important for what we're doing here because we do want to make a quality kit that's affordable, but we also wanted to create a kit that we were not focused on cost as much as performance and just how complete the kit is. So we tried to touch on both of them. Our better tier is on par with the industry leaders, and our best tier is well beyond that. And I will show you a demo here in this video of our better tier versus our best tier so you can get a better idea of just what to expect from the two. Also included in our kits are going to be extensions. So obviously when you come up to the front of the bumper and you run out to the wheels, you have to run around those wheels to the side skirts and then around your back wheels to the rear of the car. So we have these extensions here. Now, one of the things that we noticed in the industry standard was that most people were using 22, maybe 20 gauge wiring. And really for what we're running, you need to be about 18. 18 seems to be the sweet spot. It works very well. And that is what we went with. We were able to get a 18 gauge wires with some very beefy plugs. And we also have the flat wires on them. So that is another concern that a lot of companies have had, is the idea that the typical 18 gauge plugs like these are very stiff because they're round. And a round plug does not have nearly the flexibility that a flat plug like this does. And so it does make things a little bit more difficult to hide the wires, run the wires, tuck the wires, and do the things that you might want to do. Because obviously you don't want wires hanging down that can grab a hold of things while you're driving down the road. So the use of these wires is the direction that we went. And once again, these are barrel connectors on these with gaskets inside. So it is made to be a waterproof connection under your car. And using the 18 gauge wiring, we are able to run a full length, even on our best tier. Typically does not need any power injection at the end. That's another problem that we've seen with a lot of kits, especially the high-end kits that are putting out a lot of power. Most of the time you have to have some kind of a power injection at the end of that kit to make sure that your colors are all clear and equally as bright at the end of the kit as it is to the front of the kit. And that's something that we wanted to address, and the 18 gauge wiring really helped with that. Now, that's not to say that power injection at the end of this kit won't help some. It greatly depends on the length of the kit, how many pieces you have in the kit, how much you've ran, as to whether or not you're going to need that. I would say in general, you do not. If you buy a kit, you install a kit, you probably won't notice, and you'll probably be perfectly fine. If you do get a kit, and you want to go a little bit of an extra step, you can add that power injection at the end. And that's something we will show on the truck, because the truck is going to be one of those kits. It's a 2500, 2018 2500. So it is a longer truck, and it will most definitely need power injection at the end. So look forward to that video when it does come out in a few weeks. And we will cover the idea of power injection with this controller and how you would go about doing that. So with the kit, you will get a 2-meter extension to go over each wheel. So 4 total 2-meter extensions to make it around each wheel to the rear of the car. We also do sell these in 1-meter lengths. The purpose of those in general would be like to get around dual exhaust if you have that. So you could run it along the side of your rear bumper, go around a dual exhaust or even a single exhaust if you have that, and then connect that last strip in between the tips of the exhaust. So we do have the 1-meter and the 2-meter extensions. The standard kit is going to have 4 2-meter extensions with 6 strips. The idea being to run the sides, the side skirts, and the front bumper. If you do want to add between the 2 exhaust tips in the rear of a car, you will probably want to go ahead and add a 1-inch extension pair, a pair of them. So on the website, we do sell them by the singles just in case. So you would have to add 2 of those, and then a pair of strips that we do actually sell by the pair. So it might be a little confusing, but it does explain that in the description. So make sure you read that. So moving on to the strips themselves. Now, you will get 6 total strips. They may or may not be in bags like this. It depends. We're offering free shipping on all of our kits, just like everything else on our website within the continental United States. So we do try to keep everything as packed tightly as we can. Sometimes the bags do not fit in the box really well, so we may pull them out of the bags, put them in the box. That way we can try to keep it as tight as we can to help keep costs down. So you may or may not get them in our fancy bags. If you don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. You're probably just going to throw them away when you get them anyways. But you will notice that they are marked as far as the sizing goes in the top corner. So you will see, like, this case is a 64-inch. We do have a 24-inch here and a 12-inch. So this is kind of like a typical kit. So we would say, like, maybe 2 24s in the front, over to a 64 pairs on the side, and then a 12-inch in the rear. And once again, on our kit, you can choose the size for each, for the front, the sides, and the rear, to figure out what best fits your application. Once again, definitely follow the measurement tool on the website to determine what size you need for your kit. Looking inside the bag, you do see our strips here, and the strips themselves are designed to be the most output that we can. With these, we are wider than the typical strips on the market, which gives us more PCB to work with, which allows us to transfer more power through the strip than what a lot of kits will do. So a lot of kits, when they have a little bit of a thinner PCB, it's the equivalent of using a thinner wiring, basically. So all of that power has to transfer through the strip to the end of the strip, and with that, it does at times make the end of the strip less bright because it struggles to transfer all that power through. It can also create a lot of heat in the strip itself when you do that, and potentially lead to failure points in some applications. So it's something to consider, and one of the reasons we went the direction we did. Now, we did use a same plug here on the front end, so tucking it is much easier. Usually you can do that right behind the front mud flap or rear mud flap or whatever equivalent area you have on the car, and that way it does stay out of the way. And then once again, that 3M VHB tape on the back side, which is a very good tape as long as you prep the surface properly. And once again, aluminum rails is a really good idea. That is what we will be doing on the truck, probably any installs that we do, just because it works so well and protects the strips better than not using anything. So just keep that in mind. You will notice on the strip there are arrows to indicate the flow of direction. With these strips, they do flow in a certain direction. That means there is a point where it has to start and a point where it flows out and stops. So it is pretty hard to get these backwards because the plugs are male and female for each end. So you'll figure it out pretty quick if you do it wrong. But the downside would be if you go ahead and secure this under the car first and then realize you went the wrong direction with your flow, you will have to pull it off, which is going to be difficult because of that tape. And the tape is probably not going to stick right after you do that. So you definitely want to pay attention to those arrows before you secure this in place and ensure that the arrows are flowing in the direction of flow. So keeping in mind that your front bumper center is where you want it to start and then flow outward towards the back of the car. So just think of it like your arrows should point towards the end of the strip, wherever that's going to run. So just keep that in mind as you do your install. So one of the things that really sets our kits apart as well is our LED density. Now, what is LED density? Well, that just means the amount of LEDs that you have per meter on your strip. So the typical number in the industry seems to be about 60 LEDs per meter. And there are some benefits to that for development purposes. Cost is a big one. You have less LEDs, you have less cost involved. Another big one is power distribution. You know, we talked about using 18 gauge wiring and thicker PCB. Well, part of that is to help transfer all the extra power that's needed for nearly 40% more LEDs that we have. So as I said, the industry standard is 60 LEDs per meter. We are using 84 LEDs per meter, so about 40% more LEDs than what the standard is in the industry. And what does that mean for you as the end user? Well, you're going to have a brighter output because more LEDs within a tighter area means more output to hit the ground, to shine outward. So you will actually get a brighter output because of that. Now, that alone doesn't necessarily mean that it will be better than every other kit on the market, because you can have LEDs that output brighter than other LEDs. So that is one aspect of what makes our kits better. But beyond that, we also have the LED options that we use. So if you look here, you will see I do have two strips next to each other. We have our better tier and our best tier, and they are not easily distinguishable between the two. We are using a brighter LED and a higher power IC chip that controls the LEDs, and that is what really sets them apart. But quality-wise, we use the same quality upon the two kits, just to make sure that we were not cutting any corners when it came to quality, when it came to the materials used. We wanted to make sure that both kits were on the same level. The only distinguishing factor being those LEDs and the ICs that are used on the two. We also, on the best tier output, we did add in signal boosters. So one thing that we were seeing in development was an issue with some flickering if boosters are not used. So if you are someone that's going to be using our 5-meter rolls and you will be cutting them to size, we are going to be having these signal boosters available very soon. We are making up some more. We had them added to our pre-cut strips, but they will be coming in so that you can add them yourself. It's a very small PCB here, right at the front of that strip, as you can see. And the idea behind that is that it will actually amplify that signal, and it does eliminate the flickering that we were seeing on several different colors in certain applications. It wasn't something that we saw in every kit. It wasn't something that we saw in every one. But once again, we wanted to create a kit that does not have problems. So we did our testing. We made sure that everything was good. We found potential issues. We addressed those issues. And this is what we ended up with. So on the better tier, we don't have any issues. We don't see the flicker. We don't see any of that stuff. So you don't have that. That is one aspect of the best tier that does have something that the better tier does not. And it is a way to differentiate between the two, because the LEDs and the ICs look the same. That is the biggest differentiation between the better tier and the best tier, if you are trying to differentiate the two strips. As far as our kits currently as of the release of this video, we have 12-inch, 18-inch, 24-inch, 36-inch, 64-inch, 72, and 80-inch strips. And you can make just about any combination you want of those sizes. The typical set on a car for our kits are 64, 72, and 80 on the sides. You can choose which side fits your car best. And then you have the option of 12, 18, 24, and 36 for the front, and the same sizes on the rear. And you just choose what combination fits your car best, and then go with that kit. Now, you might be looking at the kits and seeing the price differences for going with longer strips versus shorter strips. Just keep in mind, if you only get like a 12-inch strip on the front of your car, it may not look great. We are offering that because some people have front ends that are a little bit longer, and maybe you want to run two 24s, two 12s, to some 72s, and then two 12s in the back and another set of 24s. We wanted you to be able to do that. So the kits, we do offer 12, 18, 24, whatever size you need, with the thought that you would go back and add in that extra pair to get the front right. If you're not doing that, if you're just doing a straight 6-piece kit, more than likely you're probably going to go with the 24 or 36s in the front, whatever size fits in the side, and then whatever size fits in the rear. 18 and 12, most cars in the front, you don't want to just go with that. You're going to want a little bit more. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at the kit, you're putting them together, making sure that you get the right lengths so that you get the best output of the car and the best end result for the kits themselves. Now we're moving on to the strips themselves, our better tier versus best tier. Either one is compatible with the same controllers, but as far as output, that is really the biggest difference between the two. As you can see side by side, they are pretty similar here. The LED count, the layout, all that stuff, very similar. Biggest difference being our actual output. The better tier is by no means a garbage kit. It is still a very solid kit, and once again, we are seeing slightly elevated output from what you will see in the industry standard. Maybe 10 to 20% more than what the leading competitors are putting out there. But then if you really want to step it up to that next level, we do have our best tier. The best tier is using our UCS 2903. So if you're familiar with those strips, they are quite bright. We do have them available in a 144 count for our infinity mirrors. We also have them in 144 count in a rigid strip, which is really good for taillights and things like that. And we do also have them in an IP65 format, which can be used for interior lighting, possibly even grow lights and things like that, where they might come into contact with some water, but they will not be completely submerged. The IP65 is a great way to go about that. It is a higher dollar LED. They are more reliable. They transfer power better than others, so you may hear other people in the industry bragging about higher milliamp ratings. Milliamp ratings is not everything. A lot of it is the efficiency of the IC chip itself and the LED itself. We actually developed these LEDs ourselves. The IC chip is developed by UCS. So we use the UCS in combination with the LEDs that we develop to get the output that we do, which is also helped by our density. So it's something to keep in mind if you are considering different kits and things that might be on the market. There are many different options, but our kits, time and time again, in different tests and applications that we've done and all the people that we've sold them to so far, when it comes to the best tier, it is unmatched by anything else on the market. So when considering which kit to get, I would say it greatly depends on what you're looking for and what other things you've had. If you're trying to get the best of the best tier is the way to go. If you're trying to not spend quite as much money but still get a solid kit that will light up a car meet or a car show at night, even at dusk, the better tier will do that, no problem. The best tier is the kind of thing where if you're trying to light up with a little bit of cloud coverage, it will do that. So different options for different applications, and just depending on how extreme you want to go with your output. Also keep in mind that the best tier, anything that is brighter, is going to draw more power. So driving down the road, your alternator's running, this is generally not an issue, but parked at a car show long term, you may see some issues with power draw, and that's something to consider. So if you do a lot of indoor car shows and you're not really looking at trying to, blow every other underglow out of the water, you may be perfectly fine just going with the better tier. It's going to draw less power. Now, my own cars, for show cars, and even my truck, I have lithium batteries as backups. So I have 2 lithium batteries in my Forester show car. The truck has a lithium battery in the bed along with the 2 AGM batteries under the hood. And that way I can go to a meet or a show with that truck or the Forester, and I can run Underglow at any brightness and I'll be perfectly fine. So in the long term, if this is a show car or something like that and you really want to push the envelope on it, I would recommend looking into lithium batteries in the back, and I have been testing them over a few years, and I do plan at some point soon, when I feel really confident in my knowledge of what's available and my experience with different lithiums, I will go back on this channel and make some recommendations on what I've used and my experience with different brands and different options on the market to hopefully help you guys to pick the best one for those show cars and those situations. I do have a pretty good grasp of the different brands that are available and the different options and the pros and cons of each. So that video shouldn't be too far away, and when it does launch, definitely check out for that. So I did want to cover our startup animation. So when we do actually get this installed on a car, you're going to be able to see a little bit better, but I will show you on these 2 12-inch strips. When you start up your car, your DRL activates. Now you got to keep in mind too, like some cars will activate at different points. Another really cool part that most cars do now is when you unlock or lock the car, it will usually flash some light on your car. A lot of Subarus, they do the turn signals. A lot of other cars, they might do the DRL, so it depends. Like my truck does the DRL when I unlock it. And so if you were to have this kit on your car plugged into the DRL or the turn signals, let's say DRL, and you have a car that when you unlock it, it starts the DRLs. So when you go to unlock your car, you'll be greeted with an animation like this. Now keep in mind, this is going to run down the whole length of the car. 12-inch strips is kind of short, but normally it would run down to the back of your car and then flow back up to the front. And so you can see that side there. When you pull it off, it will automatically do that, and you just see it flash there. That is it disconnecting from the battery. And then up next is your turn signal. And what you're seeing there is what I was talking about, how if you're not using DRL, you're going to have your show mode running on this side because it's activated the relay by doing the turn signal. Now if I go in the app and I just push off on that show mode, then it will just stay dark and it won't do anything. But as you can see here, we have our sequential going for the turn signal, and that will flow down the side of your car, letting people know that you're making a turn. It is a pretty cool flex to do if you feel safe doing it on the road. Once again, laws and legality, it's a little bit of a fuzzy area, so you got to be careful. There's nothing that says indicatively that you cannot have turn signals illuminating the side of your car. There's nothing that says you can't necessarily have white under your car, but it is very much open to interpretation. And once again, it doesn't matter where you live, and the law is where you live. So definitely keep that in mind if you do decide to go either way. Now, these strips are fully compatible with Blue Ghost as well. You won't have any issues if you go that direction. And that is why we do offer it with no controller, because we do have a lot of people that prefer the benefits of Blue Ghost. So to quickly kind of cover those benefits, one of the biggest ones is that you do have 2 additional inputs. You can do a brake and you can do a reverse. With the Ghost controller, you can also control them by sections. So you can have just the rear half behind the rear tires light up for your brakes. So if you were to use a Blue Ghost, you can go in there, you can program it so that the rear half of the Underglow kit lights up red when you hit the brakes, or lights up white when you put it in reverse. And then you can also change that turn signal style and the speed. You can change the DRL startup animation and the speed. And then just the show modes in general, you do have a little bit more control over the show modes, color combos, and things like that with the Blue Ghost controller. And we have a lot of videos on our channel that go into more detail on the controller itself. And at some point in the future, we probably will try to touch base again on a Underglow kit with a Blue Ghost controller. But on the truck, we are going to be using our new controller here. Probably be the first SP controller I've used on one of my own builds. But the main reason being, like when a headlight or something like that, there is a benefit to using a Blue Ghost in a busy headlight with a lot of stuff going on. If you're just using a halo or a pair of halos, the SP controller works pretty well for that. But if you are doing a big kit, big build, the Blue Ghost seems to be the way to go. And most of the builds on my own cars, they usually are a little bit bigger. So the Blue Ghost is the way I usually go with that. But for the Underglow, you just got strips that start from the front and flow to the rear. Aside from the brake input and reverse, you're not leaving a whole lot on the table by going with our controller. And beneficially speaking, you're going to save a lot of money. To set up a similar setup to this with a Blue Ghost, if you got it from us, you're looking at about a $300 upcharge to get a Blue Ghost that does that is plug and play like this one. So if that is a direction you want to go, you can reach out, let us know, and we can get you a controller put together to work with this kit. But in general, I would definitely consider going with the SP105E. Hopefully I've explained it pretty well as to what makes it special versus just getting a cheap white one from Amazon or eBay. Ours do offer a little bit more than what you're going to get with those kits. So there you go, guys. There's a basic overview of our Next Level Glow kits from Next Level Neo. Hopefully you can find a kit that fits your vehicle. If not, by all means, reach out, let us know. We can try to help you get hooked up. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.